Welcome to the Band Director Bootcamp podcast, the go-to place for busy band directors who want practical to build programs while maintaining balance in their lives. This podcast is brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where we help directors like you find efficiency, sustainability, and impact in your teaching and leadership. Now, let's dive in and set the tempo for success.
Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, a podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. We know you don't have time to watch lengthy professional development webinars, so we give you 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to help you amplify your impact and not your workload. Today, we're going to talk about wellness through mental health, mental wellness. It's a hot topic. We didn't talk about it when I was in school in the 1980s to do all this stuff, but boy, we should have, because it's really, really important stuff to talk about it. And I'm here with somebody who does this all the time, and anyone who feels like you might have a stigma around this, he's going to help us talk about it and get some vocabulary and understand tie-ins to us and our students and why we want to have these conversations. Because we're often the people that kids come to when life gets hard. And we notice, like, if a kid's not acting like themselves, or we're celebrating their successes, but then we're helping them navigate challenges. And then who supports you through all this too? So we're going to talk about something that every educator experiences, but only a few really discuss openly. And that's mental health and resilience, the courage to ask for help. I've been in that low point and at burnout and all those things. And so I didn't have the tools I needed to get out of it. And I had to get lots of help. And I got somebody here that's going to hopefully resonate with a lot of you who might feel overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, and wondering how you're going to keep showing up for other people when you're struggling too. I've been there, and I'm delighted to have a guest today to talk to us about this up front. I'm super excited. Our guest today is Joshua Rivedal. He's a speaker and an author and a mental health advocate, and also the founder of the I'm Possible Project. His work focuses on suicide prevention, mental health awareness, resilience, and helping people have the conversations that are often the hardest, but the most important ones to have. Through speaking and storytelling and education, he's helped thousands of people better understand mental health and recognizing that asking for help is not weakness, it's strength. And Joshua, I know you aren't actually a band director, but I got to tell you, we're all control freaks. So we have a hard time asking for help because we want to control everything and be in charge and stuff. So you got a tough audience out here today, probably a very ready one.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
So we're going to talk about this through many angles. One being, of course, our own mental health as music educators and the like. But let's talk first about how that situation we've all been in, and will probably be in many more times, those students that confide in us, that come to us, and we have that, the secondary trauma, that extra mental load we carry with those kids and stuff, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Tell us about your what you do in this realm and how you help people and why.
Yeah, so I got into this work. So initially, my original background is creative. I was going to go to school to be a music teacher. I'm a musician. I'm a singer. I've done that professionally. I've done it not professionally. I grew up doing it, and so that was sort of my way out. And then I got into professional acting and playwriting in my early 20s. And when I was 25, my father died by suicide. And there's a history of mental illness and suicide on that side of the family, but we never talked about it. And I saw, that kind of as a model. And then a couple years later, I was 27. I was in crisis. I was back in school as a non-traditional age student. I was taking on way too much in terms of work, in terms of not taking care of myself, in terms of focusing on things that were outside of my control. And also on top of that, I had a perceived lack of resources because I saw a role model that didn't utilize resources, so neither did I, that role model being my father. And so I nearly attempted at the age of 20 27, nearly attempted, was in crisis, extreme burnout, extreme, I lived with two treatable, diagnosable mental illnesses. I didn't know that at the time. Clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder. Had been getting help for them at the time, I'd been completely fine as I am today. However, at that time, I was in crisis and nearly attempted. Thankfully, I got help. I reached out. That was completely foreign to me. And as I started to heal and grow after I got that help, and it was this really quick process, I realized that helping other people also, I did the research later, but it turns out that intentional acts of service boost chemicals in the body that boost mood. At the time, I was just helping an elderly woman in and out of my building that I was living in New York City. So even those small moments, it doesn't have to be like, I'm marching on Washington, I'm going to help that kid redo his life because I'm the best band teacher ever. Like, I didn't do that. I did something small, and those little small acts started to help me rebuild and grow. And that's not the only thing. I found counseling therapy. I started eating differently. I started to really negotiate differently with how my life looked. I had to metaphorically learn how to walk again. And from there, I started to realize like other people needed assistance, like I needed assistance, but nobody was talking about it. This was 2011. It was shameful at the time. It's not. It never should have been, but it was shameful for somebody, a male, let alone anybody, but a male, to get up in front of people and talk about this kind of stuff. But I was like, you know what? I needed to hear that voice, so I'm going to be that voice. And so I started initially started speaking in colleges, and then middle schools and high schools, mainly to students, and then to staff. And I do a lot of workplace stuff now, but I'm helping people have these big conversations around resilience, around burnout, around emotional exhaustion, self-care, what to do if you were in a situation like me or like my dad. Like, what if you're in crisis? How do you reach out? So there's some moving parts to it, but I've been doing that for the last 14 and a half years. And I'm still able to fit in the creative stuff too, from time to time, but most of my work is in this space. And that's just a smidgen of the story, but I think that's probably the most useful for what we're talking about at the moment.
All right. So that is a lot you've bring to the table today, and a lot of a variety of experiences. What do you think about the emotional burden that like comes when everybody's relying on you, even if you feel like, hey, I'm totally okay with who I am, when you got 150, 200, 250 middle schoolers and high schoolers or whatever coming at you all the time, and a lot of the go-to, how do you do that? Especially if you've got your own things to deal with, and how do you handle that piece?
Yeah, I think for me, if I was in that situation, I've been in that situation in dribs and drabs, not like every day, 9 hours, 6 hours a day. But I know, I think in small moments, like we learn in small moments to build muscle memory. So I can kind of speak to this in the sense where I would certainly set boundaries when and where possible. And so, and safety nets too, because like, let's say there's a couple students who are probably the most, we'll just use this as a hypothetical, but a couple students are sort of the most vulnerable, and they're the ones that lean on you the most. I would make sure, as I'm working with them, as I'm mentoring them, maybe beyond the classroom, beyond the clarinet, as it were, I would probably see who else they have rapport with in that school, and make sure that and maybe even let them know, like, that's somebody you need to rely on. And I'm not passing you off, but this is, we need to have a safety net for ourselves. And then I would model that by then also leaning on that other person as well for some support as it pertains to that student, right? So I would kind of triangulate. So I would kind of have multiple supports. I might, depending on how dire or how what's going on with that student, I would make the social worker, the psychologist, the counselor, whomever in that suite of helping people, helping roles, I would let them know kind of certain things and just keep them privy to what's going on. And then for me, those boundaries also go like, hey, like let's say maybe my office hours are from 3 to 4. I'm making this up. Well, from 3:30 to 4, even though those are my office times, that's gonna be my time, and my door's gonna be locked, whatever. Like I'm making this up, so there's arbitrary things, but I just think certain boundaries. And then also, if there's a moment or two, it doesn't have to be be an hour, but if there's something that I need to do to sort of reset during the day, I'm going to do that. That might be a quick walk around outside. That might be having a succulent on my window so I can look at something that's fresh while I'm looking at a bunch of people who are not playing in D minor properly. Oh, that's a terrible example. D minor, that's a hard key to play in. But yeah, so I would do little things like that. Just finding these little moments and sort of being cognizant of that, and mainly also trying to set that up when I'm feeling well, and maybe at the beginning of the school year or during my plotting and planning time, so that I have at least something to work with when I'm in the moment, when I'm at school, when I'm there. I love it's kind of applies in the situation, but there's a boxing quote. I'm going to mess up who it's attributed to, but you always have a plan in the ring until somebody punches you in the face, right? So like you got to have some kind of a plan. I think you want to have some kind of a plan in the beginning of the school year, and maybe check in periodically to sort of adjust that plan, because life, the classroom or whatever, is going to punch you in the face, and you got to be able to rebound. So
it's interesting. Back to the beginning of that, something I think you said that I want to just go back and highlight because it's important. You didn't try to fix a child that comes to you with those issues. And we're fixers a lot of the time. We want to fix. We're control freaks. I'm back to that again. And I think that we have to acknowledge and understand that our area of expertise is one thing. And then when we're out of that, when we're dealing with students who need help that we can't and probably shouldn't be giving them, it's not within our boundary to do that. But finding the right support and following up with that. You really laid out for what, teachers, if you haven't had, who haven't maybe dealt with this much, or who might be in a moment go, oh, I just want to fix it for the kid. Maybe step back for a minute. And then, like you said, there's even at that point, a little reset before you do anything. If somebody comes to you with some pretty harsh or horrible information and you have to follow up with it because it's pretty heavy, stopping and taking a breath and thinking through the steps and understanding that what you're doing is to support the child, even though in the moment it might be hard. But like you also said, you have to explain to the child too, sometimes I'm going to help you with this situation. And typically if they come to you, they know that you're going to go outside. They don't expect you to necessarily fix it. So we have to sometimes keep that in the back of our minds that we're not the fixer.
That's right. That's right. You're a piece of the safety net. You're not the safety net, right? And I think that's a great, thanks for pulling that out, because I think when we come on board as helpers in any context, this is not just teacher stuff, but this is who we're talking to generally. So this is who we're going to reference. But I think often, but not always, we feel like we have to fix and we don't. Put the cape at home. Nobody's asking for that, right? But we think that because it's I got to save, I got to help, I got to do, I got to be. That's thinking. That's someone else's thinking. That's something that someone planted in you. That has nothing. Our job is to show up, to be vulnerable, right? We want that student to be vulnerable. I find that when I often, but not always in life, when I want to see somebody display a certain behavior, I need to display it first myself. So there's different ways to display that vulnerability with maybe, and you don't have to reveal too much necessarily, but just hey, oh, that must be hard, or that must be challenging, or I went through something similar. And you don't have to go into the details, but just that we can be a little vulnerable, things like that. And we don't want to say things like it'll get better, or it'll, I know how you feel, because we don't and that's not your job. Our job is to be empathetic, to put yourself in their shoes, to show some compassion, but it's not our job to know how somebody feels. And often when we say things like that, we skip what's really important, which is listening and validating. Listening is so important. That's our biggest job here. Validating is probably our second biggest job, maybe combined with knowing resources in the building and outside the building. But listening and validating, those are huge. They make up more of the equation than you might think. And then you're asking questions too, and you're asking open-ended questions that can maybe lead them in a certain direction. Open-ended questions are going to have think and feel. What would it look like if you did get better? What would it feel like? What do you think it would sound like on the flute if your day did get better? Things like that. And because often when somebody's having a hard time, or let's take it to they're in crisis, all they're doing is thinking about getting out of the pain, so they have blinders on. Now you're asking these questions that aren't leading them to us a dead end. How you doing? Fine. What's going on? Meh. You're like, we've all been to middle school too, and we know how to stonewall a conversation, and they do too. And they're going to do that because this is a hard conversation. Even if they come to you, they might have a hard time talking about this. So asking questions and asking open-ended questions at a certain point is going to be a very valuable tool.
Those questions you just asked were beautiful because, what would it feel like if? And then, of the thing, what would success look like? And getting them to, because maybe they haven't thought about that. They've only thought about the problem and they haven't thought about what a solution would look like. And you can just hold space for them to articulate what they even need because they don't even know sometimes accept that space to be held.
Yeah. And it's like, and by us sort of throwing solutions rather than asking questions or rather than going through this process, it kind of, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, but it dishonors their personhood and their dignity. And just because they're younger than us doesn't mean they don't feel those same things that we feel sometimes when somebody's like, wait a minute, what? I don't need that right now. Like, don't offer that to me. Like, what? And they might not have all that articulate. Maybe they do, but sometimes they don't have that articulation. But you can read it on their face. You can see it in their body language. So rather than us trying to fix and show up, like it's just like, what you said, like listening, showing up, asking those big questions. Yeah.
Well, I got some questions, a couple more questions for you. But first, I want to take just a moment and recognize our podcast sponsor, the Empowered Music Educator Academy. If you're listening to this while thinking about everything still on your to-do list, I see you. One of the reasons I started building tools alongside this podcast was because even the best strategies don't help you if you're too exhausted to implement them. That's exactly why I created Band Director Buddy GPT. It's a productivity and wellness tool designed to think like a successful band director and support the real work behind the scenes, the planning, emails, scheduling, and problem solving, and more, so you can amplify your impact without increasing your workload. If you're a busy band, choir, or orchestra teacher who wants a sustainable way to do this job, you can learn more at banddirectorbuddy.com. All right, I'm back here with Joshua Rivedal, and we have been talking about mental health and different ways to support things. But I want to talk about, and I know we talk about it on the podcast a lot, but sometimes we need to hear it from different voices because teachers, we all tell our kids the same thing day in and day out. And then we pay money to take our kids to a festival so the judge can tell them the same thing. So, my book and a lot of other people's books about how to be healthy and how to do all these things, they're very similar. We're just saying them in a different way. And Joshua, sure. I would like to ask you in your words or in your ways to talk about what are some symptoms of burnout? What does it look like and feel like so that those folks out there that are burning both ends, I'm not burnt out. Maybe what did it look like for you or in situations?
I think sometimes it's just complete exhaustion. Like, I don't want to do the things I once did. I'm over this. Everything is terrible. It's people pleasing. It's I've got to help everybody. So you're putting your needs on the back burner for any reason. It might be my value is derived from whatever's happening in this job or this job itself. And then when that job isn't going well, your table that's been sitting on that one pole, rather than having all these legs of other supports, you're supporting it on this one thing. It's wobbly. It's not going to go. It's going to fall down and crash. I'm the only one who can solve this problem. Things like that. I'm going to react. Because they need a solution, I'm going to react rather than thinking this through, taking some time, listening, asking questions. So those are a few. Those are a few symptoms of burnout that I've seen, some that I've experienced. I think those are relatively common. Yeah.
I know you're not a doctor and we are not giving medical advice, but what do you say would be like the difference between burnout versus depression? Do you think that plays out differently in people?
Yeah, depression is chronic, so it's a treatable, diagnosable condition. Burnout is not. Doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve sometimes similar treatment and similar and just a general idea of care. We need to care for both of these things, and both there's preventative measures we we can take to mitigate the severity of both. But depression is chronic, so and it's not sadness. It's a chronic. I would say it's a chronic lack of joy. That's oversimplifying it a little bit. And there's certain symptoms that people experience with depression, and there's different categories of that. And burnout, I mean, they can feel very similar, and then burnout can lead to sadness, and people often think that sadness and burnout, or excuse me, sadness and depression are the same thing, and they're not. And so burnout is going to be like, not enjoying the things I once did, things like that. And there's going to be some crossover maybe to that and depression. But depression is also characterized by low mood and things like that. And so, and you can see a doctor for that. You can't really see a doctor for burnout, but you can certainly take preventative measures for both. So there's some similarities, there's some crossover, but I don't think there's any but there. I think we can treat both. We can pay attention to both, and we can make them both at least a little bit better.
Yeah, burnout. Yeah. And getting that help. It's hard to ask for help. We've already talked about this on here, but we, as a teacher, we're always the ones, coming up with the solutions, and we feel like we have to do that for ourselves too. And it was really hard. I think that's why it took me so long to get out of my, when I got to my crashing point, it's like, but on that end, or on that same kind of thing, people often describe resilient people like, hey, you're so resilient, like you were born that way or something. But, your work sort of gives a suggestion that resilience can be developed a bit. So tell us in the last minute or two here, some habits or practices that people can start doing to become more resilient over time, some small habits that can build.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. It's definitely something that we build. And I think setting up rituals and routines around wellness activities, take a 5-minute walk on a Tuesday morning. It's my yoga bubble bath alone on Friday night, like whatever you got going on, but we need to ritualize a routine because it reduces cognitive load. So rather than changing habits, you're changing systems. Right. It's easier to change a system by setting yourself up for success. So I'm going to put this in the calendar. I'm going to make it easy for me to go to I'm just making this up, but I'm going to make it easy to go to the gym. So I'm going to have my shoes at the foot of my bed and all my workout clothes I'm going to wear the night before. So you're setting up systems rather than habits. So ritualizing and routining, I think, is a great idea. Self-compassion, knowing that you're doing the best you can. I believe for the most part, everyone's doing the best they can with the information they have at any given point. We know how to do better. We're going to do better. You didn't wake up this morning and be like, I can't wait to screw up all these kids' test grades. I can't wait to not have that big conversation with my partner. No, of course, our delay on that. No, of course, we're doing the best we can. We would say that to our people and to our kids. We got to say that for us, that compassion is so, so, so important. And then I think some mindfulness also regarding like getting to the root of old belief systems. Why do I believe I have to be the only one that solves this problem? Why do I believe that I've got to work all the time? Right? Like, where do I find the balance? So looking at the old systems, seeing where the roots are and trying to dig at that. And then from there, it's going to get easier and easier to then find solutions and find people who can help for those specific things. So, and then of course, reach out for help. And I would do that in small moments, like to build muscle memory where the stakes are super low. Like ask that person to open the door. Ask if you can cut two people in line for a good reason. Ask whatever, but low stakes so that when it gets to something high stakes, you're going to have that muscle memory. It's like, oh yeah, I remember how to do that. So I think those are a couple of things that we can lean on. Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff there. I want to take two of them and just real quick before we come back to them. You said, take a 5-minute walk. You didn't say, make a commitment to lose 57 pounds and you don't set yourself up for failure, right? Start with something you can do. So remember that advice, whatever it is. And then the other thing that you talked to was about setting up systems. And band directors, you guys are freaking amazing at setting up systems for your kids. You had, where does the music go? Where does the instrument go? What do they do when they walk in the room? You have everything down to a T. Give that same gift to yourself. Like he said, put your clothes in the car if you're going to use them. Make your lunches on Sunday so you got something healthy to grab so you feel good instead of feeling like crap when you find that old granola bar between the seats in the car and it expired and it was open and the dog drooled on it. If you'd already packed something for yourself, right? So those, and I like to have my future self give my future self gifts, right? Like get something done and find out, I did that last night and I already refilled the stuff for the coffee in the morning or whatever. So those little things that then you can surprise yourself later. And it's dumb, but for me, that feels good. And it just, my mental health, I was like, it's one less thing I have to do now. So
great.
I would love to have more of your information. And I'm sure as people are listening to what you're talking about, even if they don't want to admit it, they probably recognize a lot of things that seem familiar. And they might either be at the point where, hey, what can I do to keep from getting to that low point? Or they're at that point where they're like, I don't know what else to do and I need more of your resources. Where will they find you?
Yeah, totally. So at a couple websites, both www.iam as in Mary, so IamPossibleProject.com. You can find me, my name, JoshuaRivedal.com. I'm easily searchable on the web. LinkedIn, you could find me. So get in touch. Happy to help. Would love to. So
awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes so folks can find you, so they can follow up if they want to find out more about the work you have out there.
Thanks, Lesley.
This has been great. I always appreciate somebody from the outside who can still relate to what we're talking about and talking about some hard subjects, but important subjects. So you spoke about taking care of other people starts with taking care of yourself, and you can develop your resilience. Asking for help is a sign of courage, not weakness.
Yes.
Small conversations can have life-changing impact. And the strongest programs are built by healthy, supported educators. So if you're falling apart, your program's going to fall apart too. I've been there, done that. You don't have to. So when you create sustainable habits for yourselves, we don't just become better educators. We become healthier leaders, colleagues, and human beings. Thank you, Joshua, for bringing your wisdom to our show today.
Thank you, Lesley. It was a pleasure, an honor.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Band Director Boot Camp. Thanks to our guest, Joshua Rivedal, and thank you to all of you out there who keep showing up to teach music every day. Remember, success in music education isn't just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. Thanks for listening, and keep making a difference in kids' lives through the magic of music education. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. You don't need to work harder to be effective. You just need better support. Band Director Buddy GPT was created for music educators who care deeply about their programs but are tired of carrying everything alone. It's there to help you think through challenges, streamline the busy work, and protect your time and energy without lowering your standards. If that sounds like what you've been craving, head to banddirectorbuddy.com to explore how it works and decide if it's a good fit for you. Thanks for listening to the Band Director Bootcamp podcast and for the work you do every single day.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Band Director Bootcamp podcast. Remember, success in music education isn't just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. The Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you do just that. So be sure to check out our resources at empowerededucator.com. Thanks for listening and keep making music happen.